free projections. We're kind of back. We'll be dropping in with a few streams every once in a while here. So let's go ahead and switch to the main cam. Take a look at what we're looking at today. Gonna go ahead and this should help a little bit. See the hierarchy and maybe a little less in the inspector, but see how this little slight adjustment works for us. Let's go ahead and pop over to here and get that music paused. There we go. All right. So what we're looking at today, which should be updated on the title screen here, is that we're looking at turning an abstract factory into a tree. So why would we change an abstract factory into a tree? Well, we kind of just want to change the way the current system works because I have to manually add every item, every factory into the abstract factory, and it would be better if I could add them as sections. So if you're adding it as a section versus as a uh, factory to each factory to the abstract factory, it'll become less of a problem, and we can go ahead and look at scriptable object. Hmm. Get some water. So if we look at a scriptable object, what's the problem with this? Well, if we look at the abstract factory thing that I created, um, all of these different factories, there's one factory for every item. And for all of these factories, now we have something else. So we could change this to be less of a generic factory. Um, I don't really like that because it's less one-to-one, uh, which is ironic because that's exactly what we're going against here, or what we will be programming to change so that this isn't one-to-one. But uh, doing one factory and then having several items in it and then having to manage all those items might be a solution. It might also just be another problem. Uh, because if we think about if we have this as a separate scriptable object, right? If we think about it as a tree, so we'd have, let's see if I can get paint open. Beautiful. So we think of paint, if we think of this tree, right? So we have our abstract factory up here, and then currently we're going down into the nodes, uh, which in this case would be our factories. And we have to reference them all in here to make sure it's right. So if you have one of those factories with multiple items, that's all fine because currently we have it referenced to just go and collect these items. um, the info on these items, although currently the way it's, which would be fine if we weren't also looking at this, we didn't have this guy going to reference this and try and create as part of a creation style. Um, let's go ahead and take a look at what an actual script looks like to show how that works. Um, Abstract Factory SCO. So when we create an item, we create it at a transform and a string ID. Just gonna make sure my audio is all good. Looks good. Okay, so string ID. And we have a string ID here. So we have an ID that we're searching for, and we have a factory ID that we get from the factory. So if we're just passing down, um, this is probably fine for this. Where we actually need to look at is an object placement. Um, This is where I'll be working in today, which actually deals with placing an object based on where it needs to go. So for each generic factory, factory ID equals gf.id. So generic factory item ID. So this goes to the ID, and if search string is equal to factory ID, so that is essentially what we are, a placement ID as essentially what we're searching for. So we have search string. So basically we're left with two choices to try and make this a little more expandable. We can either put it in the factory, or we can try and make our abstract factory a trunk and turn our factory into a branch, making every item a leaf. Um, or we can try and create like a new class to bridge between the two, which as I'm looking at it might be a lot more work than just changing the factory script to actually be the branch. So what's our first step in identifying how to change that? So we have a placement ID, right? All of this. So we do this for each generic factory anyway, right? If we do it for every generic factory, um, it really becomes less important that we do the check at this level. So is there a reason we used int layer? This is for later. For later. Advanced placement. So it's been a while since I showed off this project. Or not showed off this project, but since this was project was shown on the channel. So pretty much we set up a placement system, or I set up a placement system for the room items. Was a bulk of what I worked on for this sprint. Probably the most involved part I worked on, and I also worked on the JSON. That includes the JSON that saves it. So if we're working on generic factory, so we're calling to create item. So what if we follow this one, right? Ref factory item and an object placement right here. Well, I could change this a little bit. Turning identity equals a new game object component, dot get component factory item. So one way we could do that is to loop through and find, because we're passing the placement anyways, right? So we can do that check in here and it'll run everything about the same amount of times. It might take a little more time to run because it has to call this method, but I'm not thinking that that'll impact performance at all in this kind of application. Not anticipating it anyway. So let's go ahead and say if, okay, check if factory check if item is in this factory is item list. So one way I could do this, I could overload one method, add it on, and then through abstract factory call through it that way, which might be a little bit safer as I'm looking at it. We look at the serialized field protected game object factory item. We could probably create a new one called factory items. Um, so, or we could just inherit whole cloth from this and then change its create item. Generic factory, which I might do. So instead of generic factory, it'll be factory as branch. So let's do that. I do that because I'm absolutely terrified that if I mess up too much with its structure, um, like inline here, it'll actually create more problems because then I'll have to like redo all of the assets if it doesn't work and all of that sort of thing. So let's just do the safe thing while we're working and we'll just create a whole new thing. Um, so how do I create a whole new thing? That would be into the Unity. Is safer probably. Factory, create C# script. And this one's going to be factory as branch. Factory as branch. Um, so this is going to have to be a scriptable object also, I believe, because a factory is a scriptable object. Let's get rid of this. Let's inherit from generic factory. Probably a namespace issue. Let's go and give it a namespace. Namespace. Bug-free productions dot tools. Give it a new bracket. Give it a generic factory SCL. Um, it'll still need to have a serialized field protected. And what's this type? It's game objects. Game objects. And this is going to be So this will move more towards a factory being more of a branch with many nodes, and in doing so, then this will be more like, say, the science room factory or something like that, rather than the chair factory, which I kind of like for simplicity's sake, but I don't think is going to help us in this case. So we're going to go equal, we need this to be an array or a list of something. So because I don't like, you know what, we can do array because we don't really care what the actual structure is. We're going to use a for each loop anyway. So we might as well use an array, which is a little more friendly to it. So using that, voice is kind of going again. out of out of presentation practice. Ugh. Okay. Protected game object factory items. We got factory items. These factory items, you can't declare an array. Um, can you? I think I can. Game objects. Maybe not. Or maybe I just forgot the syntax. Yeah, I think I need something to. We'll just leave it like that. Why does this still have a problem here? Namespace cannot directly contain members. Oh, I spaced out halfway through, that's why. Can I do equal new now? Not really. Okay. Well, either way, this is where it belongs. Up here, I didn't want that. I wanted a create asset menu. Create asset menu. And in create asset menu, I pretty much have the parameters of, I'm just gonna look back real quick because I can't can't remember things. So file name and menu name. So file name equal to a string value, factory as a branch. Okay, so factory as a branch versus menu name, which is going to equal to string value, which is going to be, just go back to generic factory, grab this. And then it's going to be, I do a lot of copy paste because I can't spell, as I'm sure anyone that watches these videos will notice pretty soon, or pretty quickly, rather. We have factory as branch. Okay, so we should be ready to keep everything set up and do this. I'm gonna go ahead and put some comments in here so I know when I wrote it. And it's gonna be bop, bop, ba, da, bop, 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 bop. And we have all of that. If anyone watches my video that I just posted to YouTube, I might redo it at some point. I just didn't have time to cut it with the overlay, which is kind of unfortunate. 'Cause, which is also why I didn't go to that second screen. I just started from holding to straight into the dev screen so that I don't have to deal with that overlay. That's also the reason for adjusting some of the stuff I found after the fact. Some of the spacing wasn't quite right. Should still be mostly legible, but could have been better. But isn't that true about everything? So we have protected factory items. Okay, so what's different about factory items and generic factory? Uh, well, instead of when we go to create an item, uh, with the factory item and placement, right? So instead of doing the factory item and placement right here, we're actually going to go ahead and override this a little bit. But I'm going to copy and paste it because I want to make sure that I have all the necessary parts that are there and then just change the parts that need to get changed. Secondly, let's go ahead and label our sections, which I might change to start doing regions for this instead. Actually, let's start doing that. I kind of prefer that, or I'm starting to prefer that. Region, and we'll call this class. BLES, variables, it's probably spelled wrong. Then we're gonna do hash end region. Um, I'm gonna start doing this instead of comments this way probably, just for the reason that um, if I'm only working in methods, I can minimize all the other stuff, even though that's in itself is pretty rare, but also then I know all my comments are just comments, so methods. So now that we have the methods ends here, so we can do a end region, class methods, and then extra accessors would be after this, but we're not really going to have any more accessors because this isn't an accessor type class. Um, Nothing accesses this class, it just calls it to create an item. So check if the item is in the factory's item list. So how would I do this specific type of thing? Probably be with a for loop. So for each, and I'm not going to use var. Var is for newbies, uh, newbies, ladies, and uh, yeah, we use constraint very full constraints here. We don't write a loop unless we know what type of object is going in it, um, if at all possible. So um, for each factory item, I would suppose. So that would be it'd be game object fi in lowercase, factory items, uh, factory items should be a game object list, isn't it? The game object array, but yeah, the collection of why is fi cannot be declared in the scope because the name is used in an enclosing local scope. Let's just comment that out for current. Factory item. Um, no, let's rename this one. F item. Let's just do it that way. For each F item in NGO. So this is reference factory item that comes in. So this is actually like, think of this as a null item until we assign its reference out. So object placement. So we want the placement coming in. This is a set of coordinates, as well as an ID. So if fi equals is not null, use factory placement pool AFI FI. Let's check abstract factory one more time for confirmation. Do I have that up there? Abstract factory. Let's move this over to here. Object placement. Where is a placement? A fact ID. Search string equals a placement ID. Okay, yep, so that is true. It does have an ID. Just double checking. You write enough code, you forget what you wrote. For each game object, F item, factory items. So as long as this item's ID matches the placement ID, right? So F item, yep. So if F item, first of all, if well, we already know that it can't be blank array because we're looping through and it will run 0 times if there's 0 items. So we can just do F item. F item, and since this is a game object, right? Um, let's do this, comment this out again. This is gonna be a mess. And this is why we inherited instead of changing the base class, because we changed the base class, we'd have to worry about the base class not working. We already have to change so much crap. So we're looking at NGO, get component factory, NGO, factory item. So what's our NGO referring to? Instantiate the factory item. So this is instantiating the factory item. What's instantiate run to? Something in generic factory, likely. Nope. This is instantiate the Unity method. Um, so normally it would be, or it used to be, sometimes you would put game object dot instantiate or something like that, or this is kind of just a mono behavior method now, or callable by mono behaviors. So it's kind of nice. NGO, so this is creating a new game object from that, and then setting the factory item equal to the new game object component, which is okay because we have that check initially. So we're getting the item ID, right, from a placement. So let's do, I think I'm thinking about this the wrong way. We don't need these guys. If we're just going to write it longhand so that we know exactly what we're accessing, which is probably bad, but at least we'll know the property is correct. So we're going to go ahead and get f item dot, we're just going to do it longhand and then break it up if we can't read it. Get component, type of factory item, and this factory item dot ID, and if that factory item ID is equal to the a placement dot ID, wrong key, there we go. Still wrong key. So if this f item component factory item is true, then basically we just do all this crap. Um, and if, so if I break here, I don't like putting breaks in. Um, then we could use a while loop to loop through it, but it could become infinite if it hits, yeah, so we shouldn't. For now, let's assume the designer doesn't add a repeat copy of the factory item to the factory. And we're also assuming that they don't add it to a different factory by accident. Well, that's a separate check. That's a abstract factory class check to see if somebody did in fact make it. Abstract factory. I don't think anybody else uses that style anymore. Um, just for testability, let's go to our generic factory. And if we check if this is a factory item list. Okay, so similarly, since that's the one we're using, I want to do um, so basically we just do everything that's not this for loop because we only have to do it once. So Control C. So why did I do it that way? Control Shift slash. Beautiful. There's a couple reasons I did it this way. Um, or I want to test it this way first. What's F item? Why is F item not? That's part of the for loop. Placement. This would just be RID. That's dot item ID. And honestly, I'm just gonna go use the lowercase. Is that not what I called it? Did I use? No, it's a getter. I get it. So we could remove this, but we can't change it to lowercase. Reason we can't change it to lowercase is if we look down. The way I get item ID is just to check the factory item, do the thing. So, okay. So right now we're gonna go ahead and go back and play this. And when we play this, ba, 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 da, ba, da, ba, da, it's tab. Okay, it still places. Still generates, which means that that ID check still works. Means that's still running. So that's really good for us. That means that should we go to our abstract factory, um, okay, I'm debating, would I, um, what would I do here? So we're gonna look at doing something with our abstract factory. Do we want to do it in place or do we want to edit it outside? So um, honestly, I kind of just want to try and do it in place. So we're going to go ahead and try and do it in place. Item ID, placement ID, factory ID, null. Um, this is already not in use, I believe. That's fine. So instead of checking against the ID, we're just going to go ahead and ouch. Let's go ahead and run that in our inspector. And it's already 10. So how long has this been up for? For 40 minutes. Um, okay. As always, if anybody has any questions, they can always throw them in chat or the comments of the video posting. Um, Create item, placement. This should all be good once this runs. Factory ID is created and never used. But once we do our check, that should become pretty apparent. Um, oh, it's press tab, room editor, click, 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 click. There's that. So then we have a room. Whee! Okay, and then we do escape. So that's all working still pretty good. It's been fully switched over. So essentially now we have our tree style. So we have our abstract factory, which goes down or continues to push down to our factory, which now instead of just creating one singular item, manages a separate list. So now we essentially have the abstract factory working like a tree, um, instead of where the factory only made one, which is probably closer to the original pattern. But um, sometimes you're working on stuff and it's like, I just need to get this done quickly. And I have a total of 5 objects I'm working with. Let's not do that. Is there a clear button? Just walk back, undo everything, and keep it around in case. So, now that that's all done, there's not all that much left to do in here. For that's pretty much done. So, abstract factory, factory as a branch, factory item placer. These have all been pretty much done for this type of thing. I might actually throw up the hold screen and go switch back over to Bike Racer. Now that the abstract's done, and we'll probably do a recording of this sometime next week, a little bit denser, maybe going through some of the placement ideas and some of my logic on how I broke apart this VR project. But for currently, we're gonna go ahead and switch over to the other project, I think. So, gonna go ahead and go plop, and we're gonna go ahead and hold that. Then we're gonna go ahead and just save this. Hold on. Yeah, there's a little bit more testing. Never mind. Um, if you've used Unity before, you probably noticed that there's a couple things I forgot to change in order to actually test it. We have to go to my prefabs, VR. Um, okay. First step first, scripts, factory, factories, create. So that only tested about half of it. What we actually have to do to fully test it is I need to create a Where is it? Scriptable object, there's my folder. So I don't need an abstract factory. I need just a factory um, as a branch. Let's not do anything different with this. Um, okay, let's also create an abstract factory so I don't frick anything up. Abstract factory SCO, testing abstract factory SCO. Um, so factory as a branch. Now I just need to as factory as a branch. Um, this is an FPS. This is in his FPS thing. So let's go ahead and check out local writer reader spawner. These aren't even used anymore. Where would his writer be? Input? Okay. Player input bridge, map manager. Right hand room generator, room generator. There it is. Right hand, abstract factory, all of this. Okay, so right there. And then abstract factory right there. Abstract factory. So let's drag our, before we get too far, let's go to our factory as a branch. And let's go to our scripts. And let's go to our, not our scripts, let's go to my prefabs, my VR prefabs, finished placeables. There should be one called room in here. Did I leave it in? There a room point right here. So, oh, it unlocked. God dang it. That's the one thing I still haven't figured out is how to be able to explore and look at properties and look at all this stuff and actually have a frickin' okay, so we gotta go back to scripts. All the way back to the frickin' factories. Factory as branch. Lock the inspector. Now we can go back to assets, prefabs, VR, finished placeables. It's not in here. Room point. This has to be one of them. Nope, don't use this chair. That chair's bad. This chair's good. And I think this chair's good. Then we're gonna go ahead and play, which it's still not gonna do anything because like I said, we need that right hand to the right hand, unlock. And we're just gonna change this for the quick test. Sometimes just the inspector is very cumbersome. So let's try play now, okay? Everything should work exactly the same. Um, one, except it doesn't. So why doesn't that work? The variable factory item to factory not been assigned. Okay. Not been assigned. You probably need to assign a factory item. Variable factory item. Okay, I have a feeling I know what it's doing. Um, when I changed factory as a branch, does it still use? Still uses factory item, which this is not correct. No, not this. F item in factory items. It instantiates factory item, but what we actually want it to instantiate is F item. Um, yes, yes. Which also means generic factory, create item. Well, this is just doing the original stuff inside that. It doesn't actually do the loop because we didn't bring that with. So that should be fine, which is why that worked perfectly fine. And this one didn't work quite right. Variable factory item has not been assigned. project. My testable, my testing abstract factory has factory as a branch. Um, item ID. So where is that called? Is it still called an abstract factory? This has 0 references, which is right. Um, room. So this is objects placement list. This is for saving, but I guess this is also going to cause a problem. Yeah, so the issue that comes with trying to make this change this way is that abstract factory still does need an item ID from its factory. So while we removed some of the code, like streamlined a little bit of it, bulk of it comes down to, well, what does this even do anymore? Well, this is 0 references. So this isn't it. This could probably even get completely destroyed because this is abstract. This was for like the reader. Yeah, this has been deprecated. This is no longer in use. Let's go back to our generic factory. What's the next one? If a placement ID, this is in generic factory. If item ID, well, that's fine. Yup, that makes perfect sense for this type of one because this is still working 1-to-1. Yup, that's fine. Oh, crap. Where was that at then? We're just looking at the places item ID is used. So this is in abstract factory on create item. Transform generic points. You still use, no, this is also not used anymore. But I'm leaving that in. Should I leave that in? This should be changed, so let's maybe mark that as yeah, create item. There's no reason for this to be the check. String check item. In the factory. All right. Create item. This also has zero references because this is just object placement. This will never be used again. Create item. Create item. This is for future use. Yep. Um, okay, let's go back down to generic factory and check item ID again. Factory ID, this is an abstract factory. This is under regular create item. Okay, we already checked that one. This is in another one with, am I clicking on the same thing every time? What the heck? 114 and 34. Then 72. This has one reference. If item ID equals placement ID, let's create item, factory ref, generic factory. Um, Item ID, MGO instantiate, factory item. Uh, Not certain what's giving me this error. So maybe we'll, yeah, maybe we won't post this one. Maybe we'll just work on this for another couple while or something. I'm not sure where that come from really, and somebody that watches it after is probably gonna be like, it's really clear, but I have an air conditioning right in my ear. So, and if I put my headphones on fully, I can't hear myself speak. So, lots of concentration issues. Factory items, NGO. So if this is the only reference that is actually freaking used, and that's just used by this one to create item, I'm not seeing where, because then the factory item is the only thing that gets returned. Abstract factory. I factory as branch. There it is. There it is. God, that's dumb. Okay. Yep. Mother fricker. Beautiful. Yep. I edited everything in the method except its uh, override. Forgot to change the virtual to override. So it wasn't overriding the method, it was just hiding it, which doesn't work because it goes and calls the base class then. So it was looking for create item was not being overridden, so it was just running generic factory, which does not have this code to work correctly. So everything was hinging on that one very small change to make it work. Oh, I could use some water. All right, so at this point, I think I'm gonna call this one short. Um, or what I can do is I can go ahead and throw on, do like I was gonna do before I did that final testing, uh, which is probably what I'll do. So let's go back and change right hand. What if I hit Control Z? What does that do? Uh, let's just hard change it. Not concerned. No, not right hand. Testing. God dang it. Do it this way. Well, actually, I want it. Well, let's right hand. What was the? Wish I could walk change what back one. I mean, he has it prefab now, so it doesn't matter, but kind of paranoid that GitHub will freak out. We'll just go ahead and let that go. Maybe, I should have done the merge first. Shoot. Well, if I pull his changes, that should work that way. So I'll probably have to do the merge today. Just so I don't brick it. Even if I brick it, or don't, not brick it, but even if I can't pull it in or push it in without conflicts, then I can at least change that a little bit. All right, so this little change has been done. I don't really have a to-do list on this one for the stream, so I'm gonna go ahead and throw this over to the holding screen. And we'll pop on over to a new project. Um, Wow, that was a lot of changes actually. Well, that's mostly meta changes. It's mostly fine and able to be ignored. So let's go ahead and say, let's close that. With that, we're gonna go ahead and get my next project open. So you can probably sit over on Bike Race for a little bit, or the Mario Party, continue on that. Um, what would I want to do on that? Mostly just, sure, let's take it easy for another half hour. Uh, we'll load this up and get going. Mostly I'm just gonna test how easily I can throw in those new game modes over top of it. So we're gonna do a little more testing today, doing some, basically make a basic coin game. And then we can look at it and maybe do a video on that in a little bit. So we'll see how that goes. Takes forever to load a new project, but you know, it is how it is. I can't minimize that, unfortunately. So, um, just looking at the chats and nothing in chat yet. Nothing new in chat. Okay, so we got use this package, code converge data. Yeah, dumb. Next thing, file. Not gonna use file. Let's do something with the. First of all, maybe we should organize this crap because it's terrible. Um, so movements in here, player, move context, and move state. Cool. Bug-free tool. Let's call this tools. And then throw bug-free tool in there. Um, navigator. So bridge navigator. Does it? Did I even end up using this? Probably not. We went from game mode node, game player node, game manager singleton, single player input. So testable is kind of used, was kind of used. And then game manager singleton. Camera viewport is used. Bridge navigator, I don't think I ever. Party input bridge. Yeah, you can kind of see how my bridge came over from the bike race into this one. So actually, I'm just gonna go ahead and kill this script, I think. I don't think anything's dependent on it. We save resources. There was a lot of comments in it, but I never used it for anything. So let's kill it. All right, so let's say create folder coin game maybe. So this is kind of going to be used as a proof of concept. And we might do some UI stuff too in here. Can you make a game where it using this uh, set of classes I developed, can you make a game pretty easy? And do we have all the pieces that we need to make that game? So kind of two pieces. We'll start with a coin game. Uh, so it's not going to use the new game manager. What it's going to need though is a C# script. So this will be the coin game node, uh, or the coin. Let's do coin collect, Game mode node. Game mode node. Okay, AC's finally off. Game mode node. This will be pretty easy, and a lot of these, any of the scripts I just moved will be like visible. We'll probably move all of those scripts into something like game management. Then we'll delete, and we'll make this into the. So this is actually going to be the party. That's going to be the name. I want namespace first. Namespace, bug pre-productions, dot party, because this is specifically for the party game, even though the other stuff, we'll do some abstraction later on that other stuff and make it so that it's more words, more words. Yeah, the bad thing about starting so early is that I am not awake fully and I'm drinking some Celsius over on the side. It's really it's drinkable, not a big fan of the retro vibe one, but it does the job. So coin collect game mode. So let's go ahead and inherit from game mode node. And if we inherit from game mode node, what would we do? Coin collect game mode node, game mode node. Uh, there's nothing really in here, is there? Not really. Let's just go out and make some. Uh, yeah, I should probably be putting like draft or begin something here, but I mean, a lot of my programming projects right now, I'm just working on solo at the moment. Uh, at least in terms of the game stuff. Uh, So we got coin collecting game mode. So what does game mode node have? Let's go take a look at that real quick. It's going to have a list of game player nodes, single player input collector, player ranks. So it's a dictionary of single player input collectors. So then basically we're going to have to change update player rank probably. Um, and we're going to want to not deal with. Okay, so the nodes are assignment. That works there. So if we assume everything works there for that, then player ranks. Maybe we want to change that so that we don't read in the initial rank. Or maybe we want to just put our own logic in there. Um, think update player rank. Okay, so we add a rank. Yeah, so what we want to do is, this is kind of just for our reference purposes. So everything that actually executes probably goes in our inheriting class. Um, I want bars, regions. I kind of want to keep trying to do region. Variables and region. And then this is going to be region methods and region region class accessors and region. Um, then we'll do stuff in here. So this will be like do actions. Not actions. This is going to be, what does this variable do? So this one's going to store. Store a variable. Let's take a look at refresh and see what. So we're going to store um, points collected by player. Points collected by players. So this is, if we're storing collected by players, that tells us that we need a protected dictionary. And this dictionary is going to be with types of, this might be too early for me to program. um, Protected dictionary of key and value would be a single player input collector. And this is also going to be an integer type. We don't want to fill it with anything yet. Is that how it works? No, need that. And then what's the name of it? Um, Screwed something up. There we go. What's the name of it? It's going to be dictionary of thing. So what is thing? It's going to be player. Let's do it this way. Coins full by I've kind of grown to like this way to write my dictionary names, just because it helps me think of it. So we think of a dictionary backwards. We think of the value and then the key. And if we want to think of the value and then the key, so I want to know how many coins each player has. So I name it coins by player. Then this can be a new dictionary of that type constructed. Um, Class methods. We're probably going to have one that's called like collect coin. So, um, yeah, because we can check a person for their single player input collector, but we can't check a collector for its node. Or is it the other way? We can check an input collector for the node, but we can't check a node for its input collector. That's the way it is. Um, class method. So here we're gonna maybe have a collect coin method. As I'm writing this, I'm realizing that I'm probably just gonna whole cloth wipe a good deal of the game manager in my bike race. Just just because it's not as clean as this. Collect coin. Because if this coin game works, that means that it'll be easier to add different game modes the other way, this way, than it will be the other way. So we'll abstract those right away, maybe, if this coin works. Which is kind of for the purpose of this project, was to improve input collection and usage. Because when I go and use this in a project like my VR project that you guys just saw, it's going to need better input handling, especially with two different kinds of players possibly keyboard, mouse, and then also VR. So different type of connections shouldn't be a problem, but different types of controllers could be. Um, so kind of looking how to handle some of that. So the game management isn't necessarily a thing, but looking for a better way to handle input and input objects was kind of essential. So we collect a coin. Collect coin. Um, Coins stored in a dictionary. So coins. Okay. So we can't access that by player. Are we sure about that? Because I'm thinking about it, and I think that sounds pretty bad if we can't access it from the player node. Because if we can't access it from the player node, how do we know which ones we're returning eventually? Let's go ahead, because I'm going to have to get it from both things. So let's just make a reference for this. Let's do, oh, so we have node camera. Yeah, let's go to refresh input. Isn't there, that's in game mode. Node, refresh input, reference. game PI collectors. Okay, so that's getting that information from it. Assigns it to the nodes. So it assigns player node to this thing's player node. So let's do a two-way handshake. Let's say um, player nodes indexed at I dot uh, we get sing single player input collector. Single player input collector SPI index at I. This is already copied, so let's go back a level or a page. Further, let's create a accessor here. Control V, and this is going to be public get return the, oh no, it's still okay. All right, that was up for way too long. Return. Maybe I won't post this one either. I gotta get back into being able to do things. I'm so tired. Return single input collector. Yeah, feel like I'm trying to focus on way too many things and it's just not sticking. Store input? No. Value. Store input value. Uh, Store input collector. Okay. Set that equal to null. Collector. Okay. So now we can probably go to game mode node. Great. Okay. So public player nodes index.I dot single player input collector. Didn't write a set for it. Oh my. Okay. Set player input collector. Um, Equal value. Okay. That got really long. Anyway. Game player node. Okay, so this should all work now. Um, Two-way handshake. Assign all uh assigns all input collectors. That should be a player node. A player node. That's okay. Add player cameras if there are any. Assign all. Player nodes a. Let's check the view. Still looking okay. Um, so we have, yep, so we'll probably finish this up and then yeah, we'll just go till the 2 hour mark on this a little bit. Assign all player nodes a what? What would we want? Assign all player nodes a certain input collector. Assign all input collectors a player node and assign all player nodes a input collector. Perfect. With that, we should be able to go back here. So once refresh happens, when does refresh happen exactly? Refresh happens. Refresh happens on refresh mode, which is called line 26. Well, it's called once on enable. Okay, so that makes sense. So on enable, we pull the thing and we do all that stuff. Otherwise, game mode manager can come in and call this, I think. Oh, doesn't look like it. Well, it looks like it actually. So it can refresh game mode info, input reference. It's looking pretty good though. Um, it can, let's assume it doesn't currently. Um, just for ease. So if it gets reassigned, if it gets reassigned to the same thing, it's no big deal anyway. Chances are this won't run on the same frame as you picking up a coin, because we're gonna add something to lock the number of players later anyway, so that people can't join during certain scenes. So we'll probably have like a enabling trigger somewhere. Probably in our management menu. Any rate, we don't need to do this on refresh input because we don't want, well, we would want to clear the coins. Would we? Clearing the coins isn't really a concern in this because it doesn't matter. We're not going to hit that problem. So what we would actually want to do is uh, just worry about our game logic. So on enable, what happens on enable for this guy? It does the refresh game mode stuff, right? So if we're refreshing the game mode, that should all work fine. Everything should be set up. The one thing we don't do is we don't have a set defaults method. I would recommend putting in a set default method. Player and rank management. So set defaults, and then detected virtual set. So we'll probably redo that one video eventually. Um, oh well. You know, everything needs to get redone once in a while. Refresh game mode info, set defaults. How does this look? This looks okay. And then I just want to call set defaults on enable. Refresh the game mode input input and um, camera info. Yeah, we'll just do the record later. Re-record it and do it with this setup. And we'll probably do that along with the coin game. So refresh game mode info. This is going to be set set default, um, for variables. For variables, and this is going to be set default. And why did I go back and edit the base class instead of putting set defaults? Well, nearly every game mode's going to have a set defaults. What that is, who freaking knows? But this way, everything still runs normally on enable. Don't have to rewrite on enable all the time, or at least as much. And we can go ahead and just say, um, like, let's do our override right here. Set defaults. And this is gonna be like protected for not virtual override. Made that mistake already today. Override void set defaults. Automatically it says base, so it does whatever's in the base. Nothing in the base, so we don't care. Uh, it's not about that base. Let's go ahead and pull open some of our stuff. So we want coins collected by player. We probably want to set that equal to, we set after our refresh. Um, yeah, we set that after our refresh. Actually, here's the other thing. We can do a protected override void. Refresh camera viewport reference. Nope. Refresh input reference. And we can do base. Um, and I'll show you what I'm thinking in a minute. If we do coins collected by player, collected by player, I'm sure we can clear it. And then players to um, so what we would want to do for that is we'd want to go ahead and get our stored rank of kind, or we could just get the list of player nodes. Um, Actually, let's see if we can find where the heck this is even used. So let's go down to red. Player nodes. Oh, player nodes is the game player nodes. Yep. Let's game player nodes. Let's mark that. Very different than the player ranks. Um, that's not player node either, is it? Player node ranking. Mm-hmm. Let's keep a look on this. Player ranks on enable. Refresh game mode. Defaults. So what does this do now? This should be labeled correctly. We want this dictionary, essentially. So let's control F. Where do we use it? Oh, cool. We don't use it at all. What we actually did was we just pulled this in. So I'm gonna go ahead and control. I'm just gonna control C. What is it? It could be a singleton instance dot input collectors. I think that's our goal. I think that's what we want. Um, game manager at singleton dot instance dot mhm. This is why I just end up naming them the class a lot of times. I don't want to think about it too hard. Even though this makes it shorter, it makes it less memorable because not everything has the same name. Uh, which while you're learning can be irritating, but after a while you get to the point where it's just like, you know what? I wish it all had the same name, so I only had to spell one thing. Um, PI collectors for each. Go ahead and pop that back. Probably getting close enough to 2 hours now. Um, PI collectors. I'll probably finish this for loop, or at least get it legible, and then this is probably where I'll pick up next time as well. Who knows when that'll be, but it'll be sometime eventually. Uh, I do enjoy doing this stuff. I just forget to turn off my screen sometimes. PI collectors. So I want a variable type that is a single, and we're going to do a SPIC in this collection. And for each one of those, we're going to coins by player dot add SPIC0. There. There's my default dictionary. We'll do more with coins and picking them up later. Thanks for joining me over on Bug Free Productions, and we'll try and get back to some other stuff soon. I want to do art stuff, but it might be a while before that comes back on the channel. I hopefully get my um, first book put together and thrown on DeviantArt at some point here. So have that to look forward to, and I'll see you next time.